Hoosier Surveyor Podcast, brought to you by the Indiana Society of Professional Land Surveyors.
All right. Welcome to the Hoosier Surveyor Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Swingley. I'm joined today by former president, or immediate past president, Eric Meeks, our current president for 2023, Vince Barr, and, of course, our producer, Ryan Selby. We're here today to talk a little bit about kind of the convention, and we're going to share some president's messages and just have an all-around good time. So let's just dive into the convention. That was last week. Me personally, I feel like the Grand Wayne is an excellent facility to host the convention. There's a lot of restaurants and things to walk down to. But I think sometimes those downtown venues where they have a lot of things to pull you off site, not as much interaction because those things are pulling you off site. I had a great time though. Anybody else have any comments?
Was the one thing I noticed, and I got a lot of comments outside of the sessions and walking around, and was, COVID was a thing of the past. This is the first convention we've had where it's not even been an issue whatsoever. And I think everybody that I talked with was like, this is so great to get back, be some kind of normalcy with the convention and being able to hang out without worrying about, masks and all that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of people did take advantage of being in close proximity to the downtown areas and the eateries and things like that. And most people had a good time. Yeah. And I think they had a good time because they got to hang around with other surveyors and have conversations that they don't always have throughout the year. And I think that's there was a big spark.
I saw a lot of networking, and that was good. I mean, even during the course sessions, 4 or 5 guys hanging around outside that maybe aren't in a session, they were, chit chatting, and wherever there were couches, they were always full. So, yeah, it looked like everybody had a good time, and like Ryan said, Ryan or Eric, the venue is just incredible. I mean, It's all central, easy to get to. Unlike French Lick, where I mapped from my room to my session room one time, and it was a quarter mile all under roof. So no, I'm all for Fort Wayne. If we can get something in the northwest and further northeast sometime, great. But if not, Fort Wayne's always a choice pick.
Yeah, we didn't even use the. There's a lot. It can handle a bigger crowd, too. There's a lot of rooms that you don't really see because you don't go in that area up on the second floor. There's a lot of meeting rooms up there that we didn't even touch.
It's a big venue. Yeah, it gave us plenty of space to spread out, so it didn't feel like we were right on top of each other.
I know the hotels fill up pretty quick up there, or at least the ones that are connected with the sky bridges and things like that. They seem to fill up. And I think it's just because of the room blocks that are set aside for ISPLS. Yeah. Not that they weren't able to get rooms later. It was just, and that's something we can talk about structurally with the convention committee and things like that to maybe, if we see attendance going up like that, maybe we, grab a larger block of rooms at the onset. Yeah.
No, it was a very good venue, and yet again we lucked out with weather. So.
A week off, it would have been a whole different story. So kudos for the date pick.
Yeah,
which was Eric a week later than last year, if I remember right.
Yeah, close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that kind of going back to the size of the venue, and the one downside is that a good part of the group stays in one hotel, the other part of the group stays in another hotel. So, the bar scene in the hotel was a little bit not as
dismal,
not as good as it was Marriott East days. I mean, that was a great crowd. So that's always something to think about. You think about Fort Wayne, or not Fort Wayne, but French Lick. It was a long walk, but we were all under the same roof for the most part, made for a good conference. There's always there's always pluses and minuses to take away from any conference.
I think the big issue with French Lick was the price of the food and what some people viewed as the quality of the rooms and such. But I liked my room. It was old. It had
every room down there is old.
It had character. So if it wasn't for the walk and the price of the amenities, then French Lick wouldn't be a bad venue.
Well, and not just the food. I mean, the food in general for the whole convention. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously there was places to eat, which again, it was still kind of that was kind of COVID coming on when we were down there. So a lot of their staff was down. Some of the restaurants weren't open hours. The ones that were on site. So that made it a little bit more difficult. But
I thought the food at the Grand Wayne was decent. I mean, it's kind of your typical catering food. Hey, I mean, it's like the Festivus airing of grievances. We got to have that in there too, right?
I did have one gripe with the breakfast, but I'm not going to bring that up.
No gravy.
How do you have eggs, biscuits, and all that stuff out there with no gravy? I'd have to agree with you on that, Vince.
But I mean, we chose the banquet meal, right? I mean, we were all involved in choosing that, and I just didn't think it translated well. Like, I kind of missed the meat and potatoes type service on a plate banquet type thing. So just something to keep note of as we plan the next convention and things like that. And so I think that kind of segues into our board meeting. We met Wednesday morning before the convention officially started. And one of the things that, and Vince can maybe elaborate on this, but one of the things we created was a convention committee. Those that don't know, Doug Herendeen planned the convention for decades. And because of that, there was a lot of continuity from year to year. And since Doug has retired and moved to Florida, we don't have, that consistency in the convention like we used to. So we're hoping to bring that back in the committee. So it's one of the things that came out of the business meeting. Anybody else have anything to talk about on high points of the business meeting? Or sorry, our board meeting, not the business meeting.
Just to briefly elaborate on what you're talking about, Ryan. Yeah, that was something that Brian Lewis and I talked about a couple months ago, was forming a committee and kind of putting it back in the chapter's hands. So for this coming convention next year, we're going to have obviously 2 people from the CIC because they hosted this convention, and then 2 people from the next convention, 2 people from the convention after that, and then people just will roll over so they all can learn. It was my goal to get getting the speakers back in the chapter's hands so we can I haven't seen, and maybe there's a good reason, there probably is, haven't seen a whole lot of national speakers last couple conventions. And, I'd like to see, the Dennis Mullins, the Walt Robillard, which I know Walt doesn't do them anymore, but Tony Nettleman, some people liked him, some people didn't, but whatever you say about him, he's an awesome speaker, and he's a very learned man. So, I'm hoping to get the chapters more involved with the convention, with the guidance and the overseeing of Brian Lewis to take care of the amenities, the hotel, and so forth and so on. And thank you, Ryan, for volunteering to chair that committee and direct these guys. So much appreciated.
Yeah, and I think the national speaker things has been because of that lack of continuity, that lack of if you've ever planned a convention with Doug Herendeen, and I have, he has marks you have to hit. You got to be there at this date, this date, this date. You got to land. You got to get your national speakers set in by this time, and we've lost that. So I probably need to go down to Ocala and visit with Doug.
Well, that was the thing about the kind of the changeover from Doug to RGI. RGI does a great job of booking venues, working out the contracts with the venues and things like that. The thing it lacks is that it's not Doug Herendeen. It's not in tune maybe with what speakers we'd like to hear or speakers that we can get in there at any given time. And I know there's kind of a running list that's available to chapters, and I think sometimes it doesn't get to them or I think having a multiple chapter presence on the the committee is gonna really help out. And like I said, several times I've heard that they've approached national speakers to come in, but their dates are, if you don't get to them soon, those dates fill up quick.
I think that's the thing with Gary Kent.
He's
New York has their conference almost the same time as ours every year.
A lot of states do. Yeah.
And so you got to lock him up, right
well,
away.
Our goal, or something we touch on every board meeting, is how do we get members more involved? How do we get them involved? So hopefully, putting the convention back in the chapter's hands will do that. I've already got suggestions. One in particular, and Brian will know who it came from, but they want to see the wives program back, which, I don't know. How do you accommodate a wives and a husbands program? Because, we do have female surveyors, and I know that some of them brought their husbands, so I don't know if the husbands want to tag around with the wives. I guess spouse program. Yes.
Well, I think the thing that's been the enemy of having a spouse program is that it's been inconsistent from year to year.
Yeah.
We don't know. I know the last time I think we had one was at the French Lick, and I know Rachel Oser at Hoosier Hills. She put a lot of work into setting up a plan, having a schedule for the spouses program, things like that. But it wasn't as attended as it was in years past.
There's a certain few gentlemen that their wives travel with them everywhere, and those are the ones that I heard from and will hear from again. Hey, I hear you're bringing back the chapters back into the convention planning. Let's get a spouse program in there. So something to think about, Ryan.
Well, and then
chit-chatting.
Something else with bringing the chapters in is we can maybe get some of those smaller sessions, the hour and a half long sessions without the national speakers, and maybe we can start getting some involvement from our local people to put on some sessions. We had a couple of those this year. And
there's quite a few. I went to a lot of those.
And that's something with Gary and stuff. We've talked about that before, but we need the next national speakers, and the way to do it is to start with the local conventions, and then that's where you get your experience then to move up to the other topics.
Well, one of the things I talked with Brian Lewis about was on this next convention. If you remember right, we had a convention a few years ago that had some small 1 hour sessions, a lot of local speakers, and there were some positives out there that I think people really enjoyed. One of the complaints that we have about our convention right now is very little outside of going to the bar. There's very little let's sit down and have a meeting. Let's let this chapter have a discussion or this committee have a conversation. My thought was bring in national speakers on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday is all, let's say, hour and a half sessions, 2 hour sessions, whatever. Number one, I think the national speakers would like the option to leave Thursday night or Friday morning and get back to wherever they're going. And then two, if you wanted to skip an hour and a half session to go sit down and have a meeting, you're not missing out on a lot of credits.
Yeah. Or in case of bad weather, you can leave. I actually took off on at noon on Friday. I had my 12 hours, so that's enough for half of a biennium. But I got to feeling a little bit poorly, and I decided I don't want to be driving home at 5 o'clock, not feeling well. So I went ahead and took off. But you could have left at noon. You could have left at 2:30 after the first short session. You could have stayed for the whole thing.
Could have took a long lunch.
Yeah.
And it also, not sure. Oh, so our vendors, right? They're oftentimes closing up shop on Friday because there's just not a lot of traffic in there. But I think something on Friday where it's shorter sessions would create more traffic in the
more traffic. And I want to say I remember, I'm not 100% positive, that they used to cut out on Thursday night. They wouldn't even be there on Friday.
They've been back and forth on this. They actually, at least one of our major vendors at one point in time had asked to not be there on Friday, and then those individuals that were part of that decision-making process moved on. When a whole new group of people come into that company, they're like, "Why are we not meeting on Friday? Why are we not presenting on Friday?" So it's a challenge, and we're obviously we want to accommodate and make it the best possible.
It's their money. They're paying for the booth rental. So I like the idea that it was open till noon on Friday, and if you want to cut out on Thursday night, cut out on Thursday night.
Well,
hopefully not all of them leave.
And that's totally up to them. I mean, they're not forced vendors. But
let's move on from the conventions.
Well,
somewhat.
one more point on the convention. I think one of the things that came up at this convention was we did have a lot of meetings. We had workforce development meeting. We had a kind of a get together with some of the educators in the area, and there was, from my standpoint, because I was trying to attend most of those, and I know Vince was too, but it didn't leave a lot of time.
No.
By the time Wednesday evening you do your alumni kind of get-togethers, and then we're trying to find times to fit in those committee meetings because it's a good chance everybody's there, or a lot of people are there. So you want to, and I think at one time even chapters used to have meetings at the convention.
Right.
So and there was a lot of sidebar meetings. I mean the educational meeting that Ed put together was very good, and I'm trying to rejuvenate the Surveyors Historical Society.
Right.
We met on Wednesday night. Only half a dozen of us there, but
there was I wanted to go to that too, but then again there was
something
else
meeting
going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know I had to teleport myself from my last meeting on Thursday to my last session on Tuesday or Thursday to the business meeting. It ended at 3:30 and started at 3:30. I'm like, if we created some gaps in there.
Some gaps, yeah.
The problem is if your class ends at 3:30, there's a lot of people that they're booking it out of there. Mm-hmm. Well, if they want to stick around for the business meeting, we put 45 minutes between. There's some time for some social discussions, and then, hey, why don't you come in the business meeting with us?
Did we not used to have the business meeting at lunch on Friday?
It's changed from time and again, but a lot of times. But
that's the way to get a lot people.
It was either at lunch. It was either at lunch on Friday or it was lunch on Thursday. Okay. I think it was lunch on Thursday.
Yeah.
A lot of when we had the long stretch at Marriott East, that's when the business meeting typically was at lunch on Thursday. And then the raffle kind of is the highlight of the Friday lunch, so we don't want that.
All right, so we're 15 minutes into a 20-minute. This is probably going to be a long one. Let's move on. So, key points: good convention, Grand Fort Wayne, great venue. Next convention is at the Embassy Suites in Noblesville. Yep. Which is right off of I-69 and 146th Street, I believe.
Yes, exit 210.
Exit 210.
Yeah.
For those that weren't able to attend the convention or are introverts of the society, we still have the virtual conference coming up in March. It'll be similar to last year. Basically a Friday session every Friday of March. And also remember, and we always forget this, March is National Surveyors Week. Happens in March. Mm-hmm. So we got to start planning something in advance of that. So,
And Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, I may have to edit this out. I believe if you register for the spring convention, the one we just had, that the virtual convention is like half price.
It's heavily discounted.
It's heavily discounted, yeah.
Right, right. So if you signed up for
full price,
the 2023 convention that we just had, and you want to also attend the virtual convention, we don't know the full discount, but I believe Brian said half price.
That's if you do both.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. If you're just showing up for the virtual convention, it's the same price as the in person.
Yes. Yeah.
If you do one or the other. Now, if you did both, there's
All right. So. In 2022, this is kind of back to our board meeting. 2022, we set back $15,000, if I remember right, for workforce. $25,000 for workforce development, but some of that was in some previous money that we'd already spent.
Yeah.
So workforce development is down to about $9,000 in their coffers right now, and so as a way to replenish those funds, we are developing a workforce development partner. Has anyone prepared? Ryan, can you speak a little bit on that?
But yeah, I can talk on it a little bit. But we're setting up this partnership with companies, and we're asking for $1,000 buy-in this year. And that $1,000 buy-in will make you a workforce development partner. And part of that partnership, we're looking at different ways to add benefits to that partnership. So, your company logo will be on workforce development materials, signage.
Get a first shot at participating in
events.
In events like career fairs, things of that nature.
There's some bennies that go with the job postings, which are soon to change.
More discounts on the job postings, and we're hoping to kind of gather some resume books and stuff like that, and those partners will have first shots at those for our students and stuff to have their contact info. So
the program, there were sheets flying around the convention, and a lot of people took them, and a lot of people had to get those back to the decision makers. But it's one of those things. There was a couple came in at the convention. It was more or less just a pledge sheet that'll get you in the door. But it's a little back history on that. Is workforce development was funded basically off a one-time windfall, and that's where that pool of funds came to purchase the trailer, get kind of the logistics behind the sandbox going, or the virtual sandbox going, and some of those presentation materials. Through the annual budget, we identified that it's not something that we didn't have an excess of funds to pledge to that ongoing and every year, which we need.
Yes.
And this is kind of to try to fill the gap in that budget shortfall that's going to help out that mission.
And it's important to note that this workforce development partner is different from a firm member. There's still firm members. It's an aside from a firm membership, or in addition to, hopefully.
And we're running this partnership through the foundation, so there will be the tax benefits of running it through the foundation also.
It's 100% tax deductible.
Yes.
And kudos to those involved in the workforce development. Rodney Kelly, he took that project kind of under his wing and ran with it. And Ed Sweetland, Ryan Swingley, I know you. I believe you did too, Ryan.
Yeah.
You guys were part of those 30 visits, and that's just awesome. And it wasn't even the whole year. It wasn't even started till mid-year, and you still made 30 appearances. And then that's what we need. That's what we need to get kids into surveying.
Not a lot happens in the summer. It's a lot of spring and fall when schools toward the end of a school calendar year and the beginning of the school year.
So our members may be sitting back. Hey, they've spent almost $16,000, right?
Yeah.
So far, and what have we gotten for that? Well, I think we all know this is a marathon, not a sprint. But let's talk about some of the physical things that we've actually purchased that have helped bring people interest into the society or into the profession, right? We've got the first virtual sandbox was built through basically a grassroots campaign. I mean, we just went around. Well, I had a computer
through the parts
card.
together.
We just kind of threw it together, but we have built a second sandbox, I believe, or a second sandbox is in the works.
Yes. Yeah, we're working on getting one. Yeah.
And then the big thing is one of the bigger expenses is the trailer.
Yes.
In the early days, Ed Sweetland was loaning us his trailer. We were transporting a sandbox all over the state of Indiana, but we thought,
somebody had the idea that we need to buy our own trailer. I don't remember who it was, Ryan.
Some visionary in the society. I'm not sure. But we've bought a trailer. The idea is that this is. Did they buy a higher top trailer?
Yeah,
so
it's about a 6 foot.
Yeah,
a little over 6 foot.
So
tall.
the idea is, if we go to outdoor venues, the sandbox can remain in the trailer. Kids can cycle in and out. It's going to be wrapped. We're going to have promotional material, but it just makes it easy for anyone to say, "Hey, I need to take the sandbox to some school and go pick up the trailer and go."
It is a mission multiplier.
Yeah.
Before, like you were, kind of saying, we had to borrow trailer. We had to borrow a trailer. We had to go, coordinate that, picking that trailer up, taking it back, and that was all on one individual. And now we've got the trailer positioned at a kind of a central self-storage area where it's locked up. We don't have to worry about security. But if somebody needs it, you coordinate going, picking it up. You hook the trailer up, you take it there, you do your presentation that day, you bundle it back up, you take it, you park it. So, I mean, that's golden as far as the logistics of attending a lot of these career fairs and job fairs and just getting the word out in general.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, we did build it, or we picked a trailer that had a side door and the back ramp so that we did have that ability where you can walk up in it, you can cycle through and go out the side door and get out of it. And we're going to build that out here in a couple of weeks. I think the Workforce Development Group's going to get together and build that out, build out the inside where we have tie downs for the trailers. We have racks on the walls that we can put literature in, things like that, so that it's ready to go. And then it's also able to be easily transported for those inside events. And
it serves a great purpose because you actually need a dark environment for to get the most fulfillment out of the sandbox. Mm-hmm. So outdoor events, you don't have to set a tent up. It works good.
And some of the bigger expenses also, obviously the trailer was a big expense, but just for us, the last 2 years we've gotten in front of the Indiana School Counselors Association. Yeah. That's, the reach.
We've been a sponsor.
Right. That's where I'm going with that. The reach that we get from attending that, presenting there, and we also get to do a short presentation in front of a group of Indiana School Counselors. Yeah. But that's not free.
You got to pay to play.
You got to pay to play. Mm-hmm. So it's and that price goes up from the first year to the second year. It's went up. So it's not. I don't see that going down. Yeah. So those are other expenses, and that's not the only one. I think we did we weren't able to attend, but we did do a sponsorship through Cincinnati State. They had the conference down there, which was the right-of-way engineers
it was subsurface utilities or something.
Yes.
Yeah,
but that's all done through workforce development. Yeah, and there was a buy-in to get our name out on their materials and things like that. So there's costs associated that keep going from year to year that falls we put under workforce development and rightly so.
All right, back to board discussion. We talked a little bit about the Young Surveyors Network. They've got about $6,000 right now in their coffers. That mission is mainly to send members of the Young Surveyors Network to NSPS conferences, have some social events. We've lost some traction with the Young Surveyors Network, and I'm sure Vince is going to identify, in his goals that we got to get that game back on track. But
they have Ethan and his co-chair. They have invited Eli. They've invited me to come up, so I'll make you guys aware.
Vince.
Silence your phone.
How much
Silence your phone.
How much of a fine is that going to be?
Yeah, they put something in we need a jar for that.
$100 according to Tony Gregory.
The foundation.
Yeah, I spoke with Levi and Ethan at the convention also, and kind of their game plan is they're going to attend the spring meeting, which is usually in March around the National Surveyors Week time frame, the NSPS spring meeting, and then post that they're planning a kind of a social get together to kind of discuss and bring back some of that knowledge they get at that. So
yeah, that'll be good.
Good. Let's see what else we talked about at the convention. One of my favorite times of a board term is mission planning, or our executive, what do they call it?
Yeah,
strategic
planning. There we go. I love strategic planning. It's like it's a meeting about meetings. I've been
strategy.
I've probably been involved in, I would say, at least 3 strategic planning sessions.
We do about every 3 years?
About every 3 years.
Yeah.
I would say I've been involved in 3 of them, and I will say the last one we had has been the most fruitful one that I've ever been involved with. We whittle it down to, I've been in these sessions where we have this massive amount of goals that we can never accomplish. And in the last strategic planning session, we identified workforce development as our number 1 mission. If you look at what we've done for the last 3 years, It has been that. Now, what shakes out of the next strategic planning session, I think, will remain a mystery until we do it. But I think, obviously, workforce development stays on the forefront. But,
But the separation that took from the rest of the identified goals, there was a big space between workforce development and any other goals.
Right.
So that I see those others maybe closing in, but
that's what I was getting at. Focus on one thing and do it well. Well, I think we have that one thing off the ground officially, and it's going well. So now we got to start cycling in some more important goals as well, or not more. I don't want to say more important, but important goals. I mean, obviously, you think about previous strategic sessions, the identification of legislative importance. We have that one somewhat on track. We've got a great lobbyist. We've got a great leader of our legislative committee in Gary Kent. We feel like those things are going well, and we have a good handle on that. So now we've identified two very important things in our profession that we have going really, really well. What's the third thing? What's the next? What's the next mission of our society? So I'm always excited that when we do strategic planning, I think it's a good practice, and I think really every business ought to be doing it as well. Any comments on that?
That's in February, right? That's going to happen at the February 17th meeting?
I believe so.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And typically, is that anyone's invited to any board meeting, but that has somewhat been a closed session, right?
Right.
Or no?
I think so, and I think just for, it's, I think for to keep it brief, it's usually what, an hour, 2 hours?
No, it's
okay.
It's usually been
and we bring in
4 hours typically.
I mean, obviously Brian Lewis, our executive director, will be there, but we bring kind of the RGI. We bring an outside voice in to kind of guide the meeting. From RGI.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And it helps. I think that's been one of the keys to make it successful.
So, we have two new committees in the convention committee we've already talked about, i.e. the Doug Herendeen committee. And the second committee is the podcast committee, which Ryan Selby is heading up, and you can obviously hear the fruits of that. Our new microphone equipment and production quality is greatly
brought to you by a grant from the
up.
Indiana Professional Land Surveyors Foundation.
Yes. There you go. Nice plug. But I want to kind of segue this into something that Vince I know is very passionate about, and I don't know if we officially made a committee of it or not, but one of the things that's been on the topic for several years has been the Falling Members Committee. Vince, I know that's dear and dear to your heart. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, and we really hadn't decided if we're going to actually form a committee. Perry is still on the foundation. I'm on the foundation. I believe Ed is too. I'm not 100% positive, and Eric is. I'm just trying to get a reasonable pipeline, a simple pipeline that when a member is made aware of a passing, then they can go to the website and they can find a memorial link and send an email, and then that'll go out to us members of the foundation. And our goal is to have, if not one of the members of the foundation attend the service, but in every service, we want to get Perry came up with a memorial plaque, if you will. And at a minimum, we will have those FedExed to the funeral home. If one of the members of the foundation cannot attend, then hopefully a local chapter member can attend and say a 2-minute memorial on behalf of the profession that he loved, that he served for so long. So I just want to make sure that, yes, you're right, Ryan, it is a passion of mine, and I want to make sure that the passing of one of our brothers and sisters doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, it's probably been more than a decade ago that Perry Cloyd wrote a very thoughtful letter that we've always used to send to family members. I think I've been to funerals before and I've presented it to the family members before. I mean, I would love it if we could get together some sort of, quote unquote, honor guard that could go commit that letter to memory and recite it. I don't know if, I'm sure many of you have been to a what's the group
the Masons do it.
Masons. It's unbelievable.
The Seabees do it. The Navy. Oh yeah, it's a neat service.
It's really, really neat. And I wouldn't foresee that ours would be quite at that level. But if someone could commit something to memory, I think it shows a lot of thought. And
we've got there's a link on the website where anybody can print that memorial. One of the things that always brings this topic up, or seems, is a lot of times we don't find out about someone's passing until maybe weeks or months after, and I think that's when it really hits you a little bit harder. Is when you don't know, and that's not a lot of things we can control. But at the same time, when someone retires from the profession and moves to Florida, and doesn't stay in touch with anyone, it kind of makes it hard to get it done timely. And I think that's one of the things that we can improve upon is a way to maybe connect and stay connected.
Well, what hit me hard, or what got me really, I've always been on board with it, but what made me want to strive and make it better was Bob Vollmer, R.I.P., God love him. I think he was 103 when he retired from DNR. He was 105 when he died, and there was 3 of us surveyors in his attendance. Now maybe it's just a pipe dream of mine, and I'm living in rainbows and unicorns, but I would have loved to have seen that funeral home. There was only 20 or 30 people there, packed with surveyors.
Right.
Not that Bob is any more important than any of our brothers. I mean, I'd like to see it at all of them.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so let's move on to new board members. So we had a few members cycle off. So my term was done. Does anybody have this information?
We've got Jessica Hess coming on as a new
new member. So myself and
Jacob, and
Don.
Matt were the 3. You, Jacob, and Matt were the 3 coming off the board this year.
Yeah. So myself and Jacob were reelected. We have the addition of one I'm very excited about. Well, 2 I'm very excited about. Don Williams was nominated to fill Vince's void?
Yep.
They're
My
yours.
void.
Okay, so you're president-elect. So Don has served on the board before. He's dynamic personality and brings a lot of voice of reason, which sometimes I lack the voice of reason. So Don is the yin to my yang.
I thought I was doing that.
Well, you do that as well. I need a lot of people to keep me in line.
Yeah.
But Jessica Hess coming on board, and Jessica I think is going to be a great addition because of what she represents at Vincennes University. I think she's going to be a great
add a lot of
addition to the
perspective.
board.
Add a lot of perspective.
A lot of perspective, and I believe, if I'm not incorrect, she's the first woman that's been.
I think Carol
Carol was on.
Carol
Okay.
was on board.
Okay. But anyway, Ryan, to follow up on what you're talking about, I myself am the president. Vice president is Alex Doherty, secretary Rich Hudson, and the treasurer Jacob Hoffman. Those fill the 4 offices of the committee or the
good.
Society.
Yeah, I was disappointed I didn't get 3 years in a row vice president. But if I have to fall on the sword for Alex Doherty, then there's no better guy than him. So, let's move on to our outgoing and incoming president, Eric. Just as a recap of what your presidency was like. Keep it short because we're running out of time.
I was going to say, we should be wrapping it up. It's been a great year. And again, I'd like to reiterate that if anybody hasn't been at the business meeting when they install the new directors, you would get that semblance of what it means, or the charge that's given to you when you're elected to a board of directors, or to the ISPLS board of directors. And one of the unique things is the responsibility of each and every ISPLS member. Because they take an oath as well, and like I said, that's what makes this society work, is all the members. We as directors pretty much keep things going, but it's the members that really are the driving force between what we get done and what we don't get done.
Right.
So it's been a great year. It flies by fast. It seems like you you're at a convention and then you're at a convention.
Yeah,
that's how quickly it goes. But we were able to get quite a few things done. We were able to get a few other things started, and I think really that's the best you can hope for. And that's, again, with the structure of the president-elect, and the past president, it gives that continuity when those goals are identified to keep those at the forefront and keep them going. So it was a pleasure to serve ISPLS, and I look forward to being involved with the board of directors and then also the foundation. I'll be the vice president of the foundation this year. Brian Catlin will be president. Secretary is
me.
Ryan Selby.
Yep.
And then treasurer is Ed Sweetland.
Yep.
So, and the foundation, we look forward to won't be long, scholarships will be coming up, and we'll kind of run through our gamut of things that obviously adding the Workforce Development Partnership is yet to shake out, but I see it going in a good direction.
And we'll have our deadline for our grants for this year coming up here before long too. So we'll have to start talking grants for our July budget.
Yep,
so.
A lot going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, Eric, I mean, you've been a joy to have in the boardroom, and we still got one more year with you, and we hope you run for a director position also in the future. As the nominations chair, I'm going to go ahead and nominate you. So.
I'll be there.
Vince, he's passed the gavel.
He's passed the gavel, and I am honored to have accepted the gavel. And my goals are simple. I'm not just going back 2 years, but starting with Norm Heisselman 2 years ago and Eric Meeks last year. They've done monumental things. So my goals are simple. Continue what they started, maybe implement a few other things. I mean, we touched on the convention committee. I'm trying to get the Hoosier Surveyor, try to get them some help, maybe try to form a committee for that if I can get Mike to help me with that, Mike Davis. And again, just support the foundation. I'm all about surveying. I live it. I breathe it. So I'm just, like I said, I'm grateful to have this position and honored that you all have entrusted me with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Vince. It's great to have you as our leader. And I guess we went through this at the beginning of the show, but I realized we've got past, present, and future. Maybe that's the show title here.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a great opportunity to have that leadership serving simultaneously, shared vision, shared goals, with some, flexibility to bring in some personal touches. I mean, that's why the way our society functions and should be. We got anything else to talk about, Ryan?
No, I think we've covered most of it. So, and we're pretty good on time too.
We were based on our bullet points that we were to discuss. We were all over the place. We didn't address them bullet point by bullet point, but I think we
covered everything.
We got our ideas across. Did we ever decide formally? Is this coming out as we record them, monthly?
We're going to try to get them out at least once a month. There may be some extra episodes in there too. So we should be, if it doesn't come out today, it'll come out early next week. So we're talking, what is today, the 27th of January. We should have the second half of the Gary Kent episode. So that the first half of that came out the week, the convention. So we should get the second half of that out here soon, and then this one will probably come out sometime in early February, I'd say.
It's got to come out before our virtual conference. Just to get the word out. So I would say these type of conversations should come out as close to the moment they happen.
Yeah.
And the interviews, maybe you delay the Gary Kent second phase.
The suspense has got to be worth
something. Well, exactly. So, do you have any metrics on viewership at all?
Not yet.
Really got that.
We're
Last
still
I checked, we had 43 listeners on YouTube. So
Nice.
We're really getting up there.
Yeah, we're still so early. We're still getting all the access to the websites and all that, where we track all that figured out with RGI and getting we're still working on getting the workflow down to once we record, getting it through and onto the platform so you guys can hear it. So
yeah. I mean, I think getting it on Spotify and getting it on, we're already on Spotify, but getting on Apple. That's going to be where things change. I mean, because
we've got to understand we've got to have podcast listeners too.
Oh yeah.
That's why we're still are stressing the Hoosier Surveyor. We want to. It's a broadcast. A broad net. We want ISPLS members to pick the way that they receive their news and things like that.
And we want them to receive it. We want them to read the Hoosier Surveyor. We want them to listen to these podcasts. We want all 731 of you guys to get involved with the society in one way, shape, or form, and go out, encourage our young individuals that surveying is a great profession.
I would like to add in real quick. I stayed in Fort Wayne on Friday night after the convention, and Saturday I attended the Indiana Future Cities competition as a special judge. Another director, Steve Maxwell, and I attended. There was about 10 teams. What they do is they build kind of a future city model with kind of a premise behind it. It's a middle school age competition. It's sponsored by the Future Cities of Indiana Coalition organization, and it was really interesting. I've coached Math Bowl. I've been involved with a lot of the different things that kind of educational-wise, where they have groups that do similar things, and it was really fun to engage with the teams. Is usually like a 3 student team presentation, and you just ask them questions. They're being judged from an engineering standpoint as far as their the structure of this city that they envision that they build. But as a special judge, we get to ask them what kind of considerations they gave as far as things that had to do with surveying. Almost everyone had a scale, for their city, and a layout. They had to, put roads on there, and how did you put those roads on there? Did you measure them? Did you make them to scale? So it was real, kind of short and sweet. Little competition, but you get to go around and engage each team and then judge based on NCAAS does a real good job of giving you kind of a structure, and we've got the opportunity to do that again. So there's that and a lot of other things. I didn't mind staying an extra day at the convention to go do that because it's another thing that gets us out there and gets us seen. And we were asked to do that, and I guess my overall point would be when they needed surveyors to do that, they contacted ISPLS, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, who knows where this podcast is going to go? I got some ideas, but I think we're off to a good start. Keep pumping it. Let's get our listenership up. And I think we have a good discussion platform here. So
yep, thanks for having me, Ryan.
So on behalf of the Indiana Society of Professional Land Surveyors, our board of directors, and our guests today, Eric Meeks, Vince Barr, and Ryan Selby, this is Ryan Swingley saying we'll catch you on the next Hoosier Surveyor podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Hoosier Surveyor podcast, brought to you by the Indiana Society of Professional Land Surveyors. For more information about the Society, please visit ISPLS.org, or if you are new to the profession, you can find helpful resources at futureindianasurveyor.com.